All right, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming today. Happy March. Happy 2026. If everyone wouldn't mind going ahead and putting themselves on mute. If you can't put yourself on mute, you're welcome to put it in the chat, and Cody will go ahead and do that for you. And then I just want to remind you there is that chat feature. You're welcome to put questions in throughout. Anything we can't answer during the meeting or during our question time, we'll be sure to email everyone the response to that question so that everyone learns today. So welcome to the grant application, grant information webinar. This is the 2027 Tier 1 and Zoological Programs 2027 year and Tier 2 Programs 2026 year. My name is Samantha Thermos, and I am the ZAP Program Director, and very happy about this year's exciting things that we've got going on for you. We worked really hard this last year. We worked really hard to listen to you and the grantees and listen to our board members, our advisory board members, about improvements, to have questions be more direct in the application, clearing up and clarifying any kind of review criteria, review scoring, more ways of providing technical support to you. So we'll have that at the end of the meeting. We'll chat about that a little bit. And then bringing together the funding categories of Tier 1, Tier 2, and Zoological in all sorts of ways. We'll be talking about that a lot today. So we hope that you see that we heard you, and that we're working hard for you every year. Cody, do you want to take it away from here?
Yes, absolutely. And just wanting to reiterate what Samantha said, it's really great to see you here, and we hope you learn a lot. You do ask questions. Please do put them in the chat, just so that we can also keep track of them, and also that, if for some reason we don't get to your question today live here in the webinar, we can at least make sure that we do answer it in some sort of written format. So some of the questions may actually be used to help us with a, generating an FAQ, a frequently asked questions section of our website, because as with all the new stuff that's coming, our way, your way, we were like, well, we're not quite sure yet what questions we might get that are quite frequent. So we're hoping that you're going to also help us build a little bit of that for the community, and yourselves. So we're going to go through the agenda real quick. This in general is going to follow the ZAP grant manual, which is available for download on our website. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I definitely would recommend doing that as well. A lot of what we're covering today in today's webinar will actually be it's covered in more detail in the grant manual. And I realized, I didn't introduce myself. For those of who don't know me, my name is Cody Goetz, and I'm the Grants and Communications Coordinator here at ZAP. And so really excited to be using this new system and going through some of the updates and changes this year. They're really exciting. So and we've got the webinar for help. We've got the manual, and we definitely also recommend that you can connect with us on a one-on-one basis by scheduling some technical support needs. So those virtual office hours are hosted on Wednesdays and Fridays between March and May this year. So you're welcome to take advantage of that. So, and can everyone have a chance? I'm going to pause. Could you mute yourselves or find the mute button just in case, so we don't have any extra noise coming in through. So I'm going to give everyone maybe a second. I know it's WebEx, so it could be a challenge to find something. It's not always in the same place. So, but if you could just take a moment, and sometimes it's actually up towards the top of your right-hand screen in your little video box. That's where it is. I know I'm sharing the screen, so that might be a little bit tricky to see. But one of the key takeaways that I want you to leave from this meeting, and we're going to be presenting a lot of information, the thing that I want you to take away is that we are here to help, and we want you to reach out in advance if you're having questions or issues. We're here to troubleshoot. We're here to if something's not overly clear, provide a little bit more guidance in that regard, but I want you to feel like you can reach out to us and communicate with us. So Samantha, do you want to talk a little bit about our team?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask before I start, can everyone hear me a little better than the first time? I understand my voice was quite low. Is it okay now? You can hear it? Okay, thank you for the thumbs up. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to start to get into the thick of it here. So buckle your seatbelts. We're going to round out our team. Again, Cody and I primarily work on grants. Kelsey Ellis is our Impact Program Manager, which is absolutely wonderful. Impact Program means that she helps the grantees become better at what they do. She helps them with business operations, provides classes and courses from consultants on all kinds of subjects, from managing their boards to understanding their own financials. And then Dustin is our program assistant. Dustin helps with a lot of the marketing pieces that you see. So if you've seen our social media come alive in the last several months, you see us more robust on the digital platform. That is Dustin's work. So that rounds out a team of 4 that we have. We'll move on to the mission of ZAP. Oh, can you forward that? Sorry, Cody. I thought that was me not forwarding it. Alrighty then. So as everyone knows, our mission is to enhance Salt Lake County resident and visitor experiences through art, culture, historical, and recreational offerings. We do this in 3 ways. You're all here today for the first reason, which is grant making. We try to work to be felt fair and equitable in our funding and access, as well as education resources for those funding opportunities. Our second one is promotion. We try to promote the ZAP program and the value of the ZAP program through promoting the activities of our grantees. So the more that we know about our grantees, the more that we promote and put it out there. And then the third item is what Kelsey works on. That's the impact program, helping our grantees become smarter in the ways that they want to, and that the organization will grow. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one, which is a breakout or breakdown of our funding background. Y'all know that we've been around for about 30 years. I think it was 1996 that we were formed. 97 was the first grants. We will be 30 years old next year. Yay, yay. And so here's how the money gets distributed each year. There's about $36.1 million that comes to ZAP each year. Can you go? Yeah, thank you. There's about $36.1 million that comes out each year, give or take, depending on tax revenues, of course. The first tier you'll see here in green is the tier 1s. That's 22 large cultural organizations. And then zoological is in purple. You'll see they get 16%, which is about 5.9 million. That's 3 groups. And then tier 2. This last year, I believe we funded 218 tier 2 organizations. They get 9% of the pie. And then Parks and Recreation. People kind of wonder how that has to work with us. But we actually give the money directly to Parks and Recreation Division, and they use the money for their operations. You can see they use that money each year. It's about $10 million, sometimes more. 42 parks, 21 rec centers throughout the county, and thousands of acres of open space. 1 cent of every $10 of sales and use tax goes to ZAP. That's why it gets to be that much, of about 36.1 million. So how the economy does, ZAP grows. When the economy reduces, ZAP tries to stay flat. We've got some reserve plans and programs. So during the global epidemic of COVID, we were able to continue funding organizations as we had in the past. This is probably what you're really here to learn some of this today, is the eligibility. You can see the blue box highlighted. That's how we begin our grant process. We opened that up on March 2nd, and I believe that we have about 70 eligibility forms already turned in and ready for our review. Those will go on throughout the month. Those will be open the whole 90 days, but they open on March 2nd. The next phase will be coming up on March 1st, which I think is like a Wednesday as well. And that's when the application will open for both Tier 1 and Zoological, as well as Tier 2. So just know April 1 is a big deal to know that information about the application coming up. Everything closes. Eligibility, applications, for all financial information has to be in, whether you're Tier 2 or Tier 1. Everything needs to be in by 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on May 29th. So that gives you about 60 days that the application is open, or maybe you're finishing your eligibility. Phase 3 is the summer. So during the summer, the advisory board comes quite a bit alive. They perform discipline subcommittee reviews about every week or every other week. And then the Tier 1 and Zoological Board spend time at site reviewing and going to the applicants of the Tier 1 and Zoological applicant pool. Usually y'all hear about September, you hear from us preliminary information about how the boards came out from the summer reviews of June, July, and August. And by October, we're taking it to council for their final stamp of approval and review. And we send you a final notice in October, typically, of your final award. And then we go into, under awards, you'll see we go into things like contracting, making sure we have payment structure set up, and all of those things. So I want to stop here. This is an interesting page. Are there questions that are applicable for right now that we should answer, Cody or Kelsey?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
We've got a question in the chat, but Jill, if you hold on for just a second, we might get to that one. So, but other than that, Samantha, feel free to keep going.
Great, perfect. Well, it's a great transition then. We'll go ahead and go to eligibility. Alrighty, eligibility this year is a little bit different than it has been in the past. Hopefully it's helpful to you, frankly. We're asking a little bit more robust questions so that we can kick out eligibility approvals a lot sooner and you learn if you're approved or you're needing to provide additional information, or if you're not a good fit for ZAP. This year, the eligibility opens on its own. Once you have been approved, then you can be let into the application. So the sooner that you can turn in your applications for eligibility and get them turned in is really beneficial for you to have that full 60 days of having the application open and accessing the application. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and talk specifically about Tier 1 and Zoological. So for those interested in applying for Tier 1 and Zoological funding, here are the requirements for that eligibility. You must have a 501c3 status, so you'll see in orange. We'll go down below that into the other orange. There's a 3-year average of qualifying expenditures of $390,000. Everyone assumes it's all the operating costs or operating budget, but actually there are some things that we don't count as qualifying, so we would need to figure that out with you. So it's 300 in qualifying expenditures average. We'll go up to the purple side, and your organization must be arts, botanical, cultural, or zoological. You must have an office, headquarters, and presence in Salt Lake County. Submit 3 years of audited financials, as well as you have to be with a Tier 2 program for 3 years so that the ZAP has a partnership with you, a relationship, and a history before you move on to the Tier 1 criteria, or Tier 1 funding category. Cody, you want to take it away from here?
Sure, absolutely. And so one of the things we're on Tier 2 eligibility, so you also have to have nonprofit status or be a municipal arts and cultural organization for Tier 2 eligibility. Around programming, you have to be, provide arts or culture programming in Salt Lake County and be within one of the ZAP's 18 disciplines. So our disciplines are actually listed in our grant manual on pages 8 through 10. So I'm not going to go into each one of those disciplines there, but please read carefully the discipline definitions, just so that you, when you're approaching some of the eligibility form questions, that you're really aligning with one of the ZAP disciplines. As you make your selection, and if you're unsure exactly, you're welcome to reach out and ask. So that's for the basic Tier 2 eligibility core requirements. If you are going to be asking for more funding, there's additional requirements, but we're not evaluating that right in the eligibility forms for that. So okay, so one thing I want to make sure that we cover is around what expenses ZAP can fund and what it cannot. And again, these are all listed in the grant manual, but you know, generally thinking about expenses that your typical expenses that you have with your organization, whether that be around salaries, artist fees, maybe some general operating expenses, maybe marketing supplies. Really, there's a large list of expenses that are eligible that ZAP can fund. If you have a question about a particular expense, not listed here or not listed in the grant manual, do reach out prior to submitting your application. Again, we're here to help with that. Okay, so some activities that ZAP cannot fund. So we can't fund fireworks, rodeos, pageants, farmers markets. We can't fund any activities that are not related to your artistic, botanical, cultural, or zoological activities. So no non-cultural celebratory activities. And again, if your activities have to be in Salt Lake County, they cannot be funded, activities outside of the county, and they must be available to the general publics. In addition to some of the activities, there are some expense and fund accounts, as well as programs and agencies overall that we cannot fund. One of the things that that we can't fund anything related to capital improvement and equipment that is capitalized. So just be careful about that and don't include that. Same thing around with like scholarships. We can't fund scholarships directly, but we know that organizations do work to make their programming free. So they're the expenses related to making that opportunity free to the public and to participants. Talk about those expenses that you're covering, rather than saying, well, we provide scholarships and such. And so just a couple other like programs and agencies is that, we can't support social service or therapeutic programs. It has to be primarily like arts, cultural, botanical, zoological organizations based. And of course, we can't support any state or county political subdivisions that do exist in the state. So, okay. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see here. So any other specific questions? I know we're getting some in the chat, which I appreciate. And again, like put them there so that we'll make sure to come back to them. Again, we're having them in the chat. So again, we can develop that FAQ as necessary. So I'm going to move on to talking about Submittable in just a second. So as you know, we have a new platform. We're very excited to be moving away from Zoom grants and to be submitting like all our different forms from through the Zoom grants, Submittable platform. So all your eligibility, prerequisite, application, and report forms are completed in Submittable. And so the really nice thing about Submittable that we have is that you don't have to adding collaborators and such, that's always been tricky in ZAP, or it's a lot easier to be able to do that, as well as if you've had ever an application and somebody changes at your organization. So submission owners, you can change that a lot easier in Submittable rather than than on the previous platform. Additionally, previously we had contract signers like have an account through Submittable itself. So in this cycle, there won't be a need for that if you're just the contract signer. But a lot of the help on the owner, collaborator, contract signers, that again, there's a lot of help links that Submittable offers, and we've actually linked a lot of that in the appendix of the ZAP grant manual. I'm just gonna, what we're gonna do today is I will just kind of give you a brief overview of what it looks like and how you should navigate Submittable a little bit. And so I'm going to actually, I'll show you what our Submittable profile tour really is. So this is the list. We're going to talk about a little bit about the portal, kind of give you an overview of the submissions menu, your submission tabs, activity, messages, and forms. And then also I'll show you a couple websites that have helpful Submittable links, articles, and videos. So just give me a second while I pull up.
While Cody's working on that, he's
Yeah,
going to go ahead
thank
and
you.
pull it up and walk you through a few things regarding Submittable directly. You'll want to go to our website. It's probably the easiest way, or to go and hit the link, and then that lets you in where you can get access to the eligibility forms and set up an account. While he's walking through that, again, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. When Cody's done with the Submittable section, we'll go ahead and do a pause, and we'll answer all the questions in the chat, and then we'll continue with the program. So feel free while he's working through that to go ahead and put some of the things that you have questions about. Cody?
Great, thanks, Samantha. I'm actually going to start from our website just to kind of show you how to get there. So if you're on our homepage, or if you've landed in the grant spots, there will be sections where it says apply for tier 1 and zoological funding or apply for tier 2 funding. So I'm going to use tier 2 funding, the link, just to kind of show folks how to get through. It's going to be the exact same thing for tier 1 and zoological. It'll just, when you get to that page, Samantha's profile will pop up instead of mine on that page. So in the resources section, this is where a lot of the links that you want to kind of to keep in mind, one including the Submittable portal, the ZAP grant manual. You may have signed up for this webinar using this link. Our virtual office hours are also available, and you can access them on, on either page, of course. And so those 4 links are going to be really incredibly helpful. So when you go and click the Submittable portal, that's actually going to take you to our landing page, Salt Lake County's Submittable landing page. And so right now, you'll see the welcome message here, but below you'll start seeing the programs where you can start applying. And so this is where you're going to hit apply, and you're going to go, this is where you're submitting the eligibility, the prerequisite forms as well. And so that has to be submitted first. And we need to do our process before you have access to the application. And I'll show you where you're going to access that, in a second. So I'm going to actually go ahead and, well, actually, I'll back up just a second. We also, in addition to your current application for this year, if you've received funding in the past, in the 24 tier 2 program or the 25 tier 1 and zoological program, you would need to you need to submit a post-spending report. And we'll touch in more detail on that in a couple of minutes on another slide, but I just want you to know it will also appear here on this portal starting April 1st, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and hit apply. And when I do hit apply, it looks, you'll see actually here that there might be an organization search function on this page. And you can type in your organization's name or use your EIN to link your submission to an organization profile. This is a new step. It is not a required step either. Some folks, if you can't find it, that's okay. I just want you to hit skip and continue to the application. We will tie it on the back end. The organization profile really just helps organize the submissions within the system. So it's not required in order to submit your forms, and we will take care of connecting it on the back end if you're struggling with that. So I just want you to be aware, just please feel free to hit that skip and continue to application if that's something you need. So that's how you kind of get into the application. When you log into your account, I'm going to show you that, that page first. I need to go to my submissions. Okay, when you log into your account, you know, either through the Submittable portal, or you go to the submittable.com website and hit sign in. You can get there multiple different ways. This is most likely the landing page that you are going to come to, where it's going to show your submissions. And so most likely, if you've completed the core eligibility and prerequisite forms, your submission will be here. If the status says received, that means we've received it, and you most likely got an email from us saying that we've received it. Some folks might start seeing their status change to in progress. That's when we're starting to look at the forms themselves and do our eligibility checks. And I just want to show you where those live, because they do not live right on this home page. You do actually have to go into the submission itself, because this is the this submission itself is where all of your forms are going to live on. So I'm going to click on that. Okay. And it's going to have your organization name up here, and which program that you submitted to. And it'll have the original date when you submitted the forms. You'll get a summary of the activity in your account here. And some of that may include like when we've sent messages, when you've submitted something. So it has a track record of all the activity within the account. Your messages tab here is where you can read any messages that I or Samantha or you know, maybe somebody else on our team has sent to your organization. We really encourage you to, once you're starting to be in the system, and we may ask questions regarding your application or your forms, do come back and respond into Submittable. Try to avoid the urge to send me a direct message via, you know, your normal email. Just when you get that message from me through Submittable, it actually will take you to the profile to kind of respond, but we just want to really make sure that all our communications just all in one spot as we go through the process. And actually, when you're right here in your account, you can hit reply as well. So I'm going to take you over to the third tab, which says is forms. So if you've already submitted your eligibility, your core eligibility form, it's going to appear right here on the top. That was kind of the really short 4 or 5 questions that were kind of mostly yes or no. And it went by so fast, especially if you had, you know, answered yes to almost all to the questions. You may not have even noticed that it actually changed you to the initial form, which is actually excuse me, the prerequisite form. So this is where your prerequisite form is going to land. So anything, all your responses, you know, on your organization information, your primary purpose, that's all going to appear here. Okay. So like we said, we want to make sure we get the eligibility form and the prerequisite form in before we provide access to the application, so the narrative questions and such. That is actually going to appear in the additional forms area, okay? And when you know, if and when we provide you that access, you will get an email notification explaining where it is, and you'll be able to go to that form. It will become available starting April 1st. And so that's where that's going to live. So when you come to your homepage, you got to make sure you go to the forms tab to see where all of the different forms are. And so that's where most of your activity, you're most likely going to be going to that tab quite a bit. So just make sure that you know, that's the place that you go within within your profile. So let's see here. The other thing that I wanted to show you. Okay. I kind of wanted to also show you a little bit of like what the narrative questions, the preview of what it might look like a little bit. So we already do have access to the majority of the narrative questions in a PDF format on the website. And I'm going to show you where that is, because I did not show you that. So just give me a second. I'm going to go back. Okay. So on the main, so if you're looking for the tier 2 questions, so you want to make sure you're on the tier 2 funding. So the narratives are past the resources and past the important grant cycle dates, and towards the bottom where there's a grant manual appendix documents. So all the documents that are related in the grant manual, they're living on the website already. And one of the first ones is going to be your application narrative questions. So we did release those ahead of time on March 2nd so that you can start perusing them. You can start drafting responses to them. So you can look at that, start working on that, you know, even before you have access to the application to submit it. When you are approved to receive that application, it's kind of going to look like this. We've organized the information in the same way so that what you see in that PDF is really a lot of what you're going to see on the form itself. And you know, the form does allow, if you need to, you know, make something bold, or if you're going to like maybe put maybe a little bit of a list, it does allow for that. I know that in the past, sometimes Zoom grants did not play well with formatting, but Submittable does. So you are welcome to format your responses. And so it'll look very similar to what you're seeing right here when that opens up and when you're granted access to that. Okay. So, and like I said, that's going to be in, that'll be in your forms section of your profile. One last web page that I want to show you before we hop back into the PowerPoint is the Submittable Help Center. So if you are having a technical question, you're on like accessing like you know, like how do I transfer my ownership of my submission, or how do I add a collaborator to my application, we have info on about that in the grant manual. But if you're also like looking for the link, a help article, if you type in Submittable Help Center, it's going to come to this page. And what I want you to be aware of is that there are different groups of help articles, and a lot of them are actually up top, are actually for grant management administrators. So like the first 3, actually about 4 are actually for grant administrators. So don't go to those articles, but there is a section, a hub for help for applicants. So this hub of articles, and it's quite extensive, around a variety of different common questions that they have listed here. This is not our FAQ. This is you know, Submittable's providing this. So a lot of help articles can be found already on Submittable on the technical side of that. So and sometimes I'll give you a tip that you know, even sometimes as an administrator, I just type in like my question into Google, and then I you know, put the word Submittable here, and it usually pops up 9 times out of 10, and I can find my answer pretty quickly. So the ability to find the help articles is also really great. Great. Samantha, am I missing anything on our web pages?
No, I think our web pages are good. Are you going to go farther into Submittable, or are we wanting to transition?
I think we're wanting to transition.
Okay.
I'm going to pull up I'm going to pause how I'm sharing. You know, we've got a lot on our list, so I want to make sure that I just covered everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me do a little summary for the group, because I can see some of the questions coming in. I think
For sure.
So let me just summarize a couple things that might be helpful before we get into the questions. One of the number one things I would say is please download the manual. It answers just about everything you can think of. The manual is your Bible. We gave you all the resources that we could possibly think of in there, including early access to the questions. Again, the questions in the system do not become available clear until April 1st, but we're giving you access to those narrative questions right now. You have access to them. Second point I'll make is absolutely everything is going to be in one system this year. In past years, we've had to have you go in from the platform of Zoom grants into another platform to answer your additional data or your post-spending reports that was Smart Sheets. We're not doing that. Absolutely everything this year is going to be all submitted within Submittable, not in a PDF that's separate emailed or attached or anything. It's all going to be inside the platform. So you download your financials in there, you answer the narrative questions in there, you do your eligibility questions in there, so everything's in the system. Again, eligibility is a little different this year. There's two parts to it. The first part, when you turn it in, you'll get an automatic email just letting you know that we've received it. Then we'll do the manual checks on it. Those will take about 2 weeks, and we'll send you notification through the platform that you've been approved and that as of April 1, you will get access to the application. Again, eligibility will stay open through the whole 90 days. A couple other things I wanted to mention is that the Help Center really does help. If you have a question, a technical question about something using the platform itself of Submittable, they have a great tech support system. But if you can't get help, let us know. And then the last item I was going to just mention is if you have questions that are side questions, again, you can send those through the system, and we prefer that you do. So if you're struggling with a question and say, I'm just struggling to answer this question, or put this information in, I'm not sure how to articulate this, you can go through the system and email us. I would check regularly in that system in case we have questions for you. Remember, if we have questions of clarification for you, whether it's during the review period during the summer or our eligibility checks, you have 10 business days to get back to us, or you may not receive funding or be eligible. That's a good summary. Again, I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood that. But let's go ahead and pull up those questions because we do have a solid list. Thank you so much for participating and being patient with us and letting us accumulate those questions before we responded. Cody, do you want to start on that?
Yeah, I'm happy. Okay, I think I'm going to jump around a little bit. Let's see here. I'm going to answer the ones about emails. Yes, you are going to receive an yes, you should get an email when we receive our eligibility form. That should be automatic. Someone did say about finding the eligibility form. So again, that's going to be like you have to apply on the portal to start that process. And I will say that sometimes, and I'm going to share my screen because I had one group who had completed all of their stuff, yet it wasn't showing up in their profile. And I was a bit confused because I'm like, well, you submitted it. I know it's here in our system. So I'm going to just share my screen again one last time on that. A very important nuance. So when you look at your submissions, Submittable uses filters quite a bit. And so you have to make sure that your filter is saying active. If you change it to accepted, it goes away, right? So even though, yes, you submitted your eligibility and prerequisites form, the whole process hasn't finished yet. When it's accepted, and if your application is awarded, that's when you would start seeing it in the accepted. But you're going to want to look at the active, turn on the active filter, and that's where your submission will pop up. So if you've already done that, and you for some reason can't find it, just make sure your filter says active, okay? Let's see here. I'm going to, excuse me, I want to pause this.
I don't know if you've got one in mind, but I'm looking at one from Sarah.
Yeah, let's see
Um,
here.
if I plan an art event that happens the last week of April 2027, is that within the time range if we were to get a grant this year? I didn't see that particular timeline in the guidelines. That's great. It goes by your fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
You tell us when you're going to spend the
Yep.
money. We give you a time frame for you to put that in there, and then you tell us your fiscal year, and that's how it works. If that didn't answer that question, let me know. But we go by your fiscal year. Sometimes they're calendar, sometimes they're July to June, sometimes many times they're in the fall, of course, with the regular art season.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Financial reports. It said, are you going to address the financial reports? When you get into your application, I hope I'm answering this question correctly. When you get into Submittable, again, the first thing you do is you register yourself as a user and you get your organization in there, and then everything else just populates, your eligibility and so on. The financial requirements that need to be are the same. We didn't change anything. We didn't change thresholds of amounts. We didn't change financial requirements. You'll do them like normal. You will upload the financials within that section of those questions. You will upload your financials, your peer review letter. Please make sure your peer review letters are not expired. Last year, we had a record number of them. A lot of folks wrote to me and did not receive much of a response, saying that we have one that's valid through 26. Is that going to be valid? I'll answer that now. Some people upload their previous year ones, so we got a lot of old ones last year. We got not just your current one, but the one before that, like 6 years ago. So we have an issue with that. The other thing is your peer review letter, as long as it's valid through the end of the application time period, which is May 29th, we're going to call it good. Okay. Don't worry. If they're good through May 29th, we're going to call it good. I hope they answered that question. Basic financial reports. Cody?
Yeah, I'm also going to pivot a little bit more, going back to a little bit about eligibility and submittable software. One of the questions is, if you have been eligible in the past, do you have to submit eligibility forms each year? Yes, you have to submit it this year, as it's a new system, and so we need to get all that information in to our system for this year. So even if you are eligible, please do submit those forms, as you will not have access to the application until we've reviewed them and we've given you access to that. Another question is about how the prerequisite form is created. And I think this question is talking about, like, where is it? Like I said, the first form that you see is a quick 4 or 5 question that yes or no. And if you hit all of yes, it will let you go to the next form, which is actually the prerequisite forms. And sometimes it's like, if you blinked, you'd miss the fact that it actually changed to a new form. You will know if you don't pass core eligibility. It will not let you go further. Usually it's if you answered no to any of the questions there, it's going to say, well, you're not eligible because you're not meeting some of these core eligibility requirements. So you'll most likely not, you may not see that you've actually moved on to another form, if that makes sense.
I'll turn to one if you don't mind. We just mentioned eligibility is in previous years, the eligibility was right next to the application. It was almost like you went one from the other, just a tab, looked the same. But every year it is competitive. It has to be a competitive process. Everyone goes through eligibility every year and has to reapply for those funds. One question I will ask to defer, which is actually a really good question, probably one of the best ones that we've had so far that isn't probably as answerable as other ones, is what about virtual attendance? When we ask you for that data of attending, or not, excuse me, providing how many events do you provide, how many are free and discounted, how many are in this location or this location. The virtual question, we're kind of working on that right now. We've got some differences when somebody says virtual and somebody else says virtual. It's quite different. We've just learned that. So this year might just be a learning year. We'll get back to you about that virtual because some people are doing it more as a product and they're just producing something and then they ship it out. Other people are actually having live virtual events. And so we will get back to you. I can't answer that today though. Any other ones you want to we can answer quickly, Cody, or that we want to do?
I will answer one last one very quickly, and then I just want to be mindful of time because we do have some more slides to get to. Previously designated collaborators, you need to create new collaborators for that. So nothing from Zoom grants has transferred over to Submittable. You do need to reset all of that up. I will say this, make sure you have a primary contact for your application that's the one submitting the forms. Collaborators cannot submit that form, and it's best if your organization figures out that one individual who's going to be responsible for submitting it, make them the owner of that application, and then that person adds any needed collaborators. So I think we'll take a pause from answering questions for now and get through the checklist, but please keep them coming in the chat. We really appreciate them.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and return to the fast pace of the presentation. But again, keep putting your questions in. We will have time at the end to answer those questions, as well as just live questions that don't necessarily need to be put in the chat, but that we can just talk through. Okay, so this was a lot of information. There's a lot of changes. When you're all done, I hope you love it, that you see things are much more direct. There's more resources available to you, and things are aligned. As such, let's move to the checklists. Let's go with Tier 1 and zoological. You'll see here that in the manual, we have created for you, and again, in the manual, a checklist. It's a little bit more robust than this, but it gives you an idea of the information that you need to provide. Again, the narrative responses need to be provided. You'll provide activities data on the things that you provided, offerings to the public, and prepare for a site visit if you're a Tier 1 and zoological. Required supplementary documentation is your organizational chart, the qualifying expenditure worksheet, your certified financials, 3 years of them, and an audited peer review letter. Cody will talk about who needs to turn in financials with Tier 2 in just a second, but all Tier 1s and zoologicals do certified audits for 3 years, as well as the peer review letter. We strongly encourage supplementary documentation, particularly videos and visuals and videos. The boards both really like to get to know you personally. They like to see the audience that you serve. They like to see what your organization does. Annual reports are great for metrics. They do like to see the impact of metrics. And then programming partnerships. That's something we haven't required in the past. We've kind of had that as more optional for most people. I think Tier 1 and zoological has always done it. But the board wants to know more about how you're leveraging the dollars, how you're leveraging being out in the community and providing services through a partnership list. New for Tier 1 and zoological this year is previously your post-spending report was about 2 questions that were long narratives in the application. This year we have pulled it out and will continue to do so like we have for Tier 2. It will be a separate document that you can have access to within Submittable. And it's a few narrative questions and then a few accounting questions. For Tier 1s, I recommend that you get your hands on that pretty early because you haven't done one of those as robust as the Tier 2 have until now. But post-spending is really easy for the board to access what you did with the last funding. That's important to them. What did they do recently with the money that we already gave them? So please note that. If you have any questions on that one, let's feel free to call Cody or myself or set a technical appointment. But when you get in there, you'll see, okay, this isn't difficult. This is just reporting on what we've already done. In 2027, which is this season for Tier 1 and zoological, it will be what you did in your 2025 application. So what you shared you were going to do in your application for funding in 2025 is what you will share in your post-spending report. Cody?
Great, thanks, Samantha. And the checklist for Tier 2 is similar in the sense that narrative responses and activities data similar to what you had to submit last year. Now, we've updated the questions, as you can see from some of the sample documents that we've provided online. Activities data will be similar, but again, as we're kind of we're encountering some really smart questions on how we track our activities and how we categorize that. That's just being tweaked, as we speak. If you are an organization, actually for all Tier 2 applicants, we are asking that you upload an organization chart and board list so we understand how your organization is, the leadership and how it's structured in that way. For organizations that are asking over 22,000 and up to 42,999, you need a certified financial review from your most recent completed fiscal year. The range it moves up to a certified financial audit when you're asking for 43 to 84,999, and then if you're asking for over 85,000, it is 3 consecutive years of certified financial audits. Each one of these certified financial review or audit requires an auditor's peer review letter that is active. Additionally, we also encourage submitting, video and visuals as well. So unlike Zoom grants where you had to embed the video into the application form, Submittable will ask you just for the link to the video. So I highly encourage that you put the link on a public or very accessible video account, so like a YouTube, something that's publicly available, so that board members would have access to that, and really keep them short, 2 minutes max, no more than 3 video links. Make sure that the point of your video aligns with the activities and programming that you're discussing in the application, and that highlights the organization's work in the community. Whoops. I went through a couple too many slides a little bit too fast, so I apologize. And again, similar to last year, there is a post-spending report that is due at the same time of the application. If you are a local arts agency, a designated local arts agency, you will also want to make sure, if you're planning on applying to the GALA application, that you have that submitted by the deadline as well. We won't get into that directly, since that is a funding opportunity for local arts agencies only, but there is information on our website, particularly underneath the Impact Program webpage. So moving on to the post-spending report, that again, like I said, it'll be available in the same portal where your other applications are. So it'll be right underneath that, and you do the same thing. You hit the apply button and it pops up. Again, it's due on May 29th, and the reporting period is for the 12-month reporting period as it relates to your response to question 6, the general eligibility or eligibility check section of those applications from 24-25 for the respective programs. And what do we really use those reports for? It's a reference point on the use of funds, and making sure that that's in alignment with what you said you do in your application. So Samantha, did you want to add anything else on? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the advisory boards.
Wonderful. Again, keep those questions coming. I think we're going to get some interesting information. I'll share a little bit about the board. We've been asked to be a little bit more transparent about what the board does and how they do their work. And so I'll talk about that in just a second. Cody, you want to throw that slide up when you get a second? I'm not sure if it's just delayed. But we'll get into that, and then we'll get into the review and scoring before we end. Alrighty. I think we're looking at the roles and responsibilities section. So there are 2 primary purposes for the boards, both of them, whether it's the Tier 1 and Zoological Board or the Tier 2 board. They review all the applications. All applications are reviewed, scored, and a funding recommendation for your Tier 2 only. Tier 1s don't get funding recommendations, they just get reviewed and scored. They provide those. Staff don't provide those. Those are done by the volunteer community board members. They make recommendations for approvals, declines, and for how much money. They give you a score so you can see where you're at with your peers and competition. And the second thing they do is they provide official funding recommendations in writing to the council. The council reviews those, and if all is good, they approve them. That part, the second part of the funding recommendations, usually happens around October of each year. The composition of the boards, you can see there are 2 different boards. The Tier 1 board takes on the zoological organizations. It's 7 members, and they spend a lot of time in the summer doing their application reviews, because each 7 of the 7 board members reviews each and every Tier 1 zoological application. They also go to site visits. Site visits include meeting with board members, meeting with leadership of the organization, a tour of the facility, and typically a board meeting and or a site visit in regard to a performance, going to an event or an offering, at least one, if not more, of that organization during the review period. The Tier 2 board is growing. The applications are growing and the requests are growing. So we're moving this year from an 11-member board to a 13-member board. Because there are so many applications. We had board members reviewing between 75 and 100 applications apiece. So we break those up into application discipline subcommittees. So in other words, if you're in dance, you're competing with the other people in Tier 2 who are turning an application in for dance. If you are in music, the board subcommittee is looking at you under music and those who are in the same group with you for what their offerings are to the community. After that work that we just talked about in the summer, each board spends an entire all-day meeting trapped in a room by us with snacks and caffeine, and they finalize all of the recommendations. They hash it over. They ask a lot of questions. They meet with our independent CPA firm about financial status of organizations. So this is a day that we do everything that we can to try and get those decisions made by the end of the day. We'll move on just really quickly to the last slide of the board. This one is a picture of the Tier 1 board last year at their all-day retreat. Again, we did let them off. I let them out for a bathroom break, as you can see. Just one that day. And you'll see Matt Castillo in the light blue. He's our Division Director of Arts and Culture, and myself in orange on the left. But the other members are the board from last year that reviewed your applications for Tier 1 and Zoological. We ask that you get the board engaged as you can, and as we have paths. The first path is inviting them to events. Board members love going to your events. If you can get those to us in more than 2 weeks advance notice, they really like to come. Sometimes they tell you they're coming, and sometimes they don't, and that's on purpose because they want to see things. And so just please get us all the information you can. Also, we use that to promote your organization. If we hear of an event that's key or interesting for a certain season or certain type or uniqueness, gap in the community, we will promote it. Again, at least 2 weeks notice. 2 months is way better, and 2 weeks to a month is the best. And then collateral. So if you want to have an event coming up and you say, we want to promote it, please send us what else you have. If you have some cool photos to share about it, if you have a short reel you want promoted, get it to us. Again, we'll share that with the board members. We'll share that with leadership and us staff. Sometimes we attend events. I think a couple of us went to an event last week, and we've got one planned for this week. So please keep the board engaged. Okay, Cody, we're going to go ahead and switch over to you for review and scoring criteria.
Wonderful. I see them. The questions keep populating in the chat. Keep them coming, but we're going to move on to review and scoring criteria. For this year, we have updated the category names and scoring scale based on best grant making practices and ZAP stakeholder feedback. So again, this isn't the grant manual, but to give you kind of an idea, we have simplified the scoring to a 0 to 4 anchored scoring system from exceptional to insufficient, with each rating point on the scale linked to clear examples that represent the levels. Full descriptions of these anchor descriptions. Well, what does it mean to be exceptional? What does it mean to be strong, adequate? What's insufficient? Those are can all be found on pages 22 to 25 of the ZAP grant manual. And we've tailored each of the anchor descriptions to fit the particular category that they are relate. As a reminder, there's multiple questions within a particular category or criteria. And so those are all linked together. And so just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your scoring. And so the financial health test score is scored differently and impacts the cumulative application score. And Samantha is going to touch on that in a second. But to give you just an update, so the definitions and the categories have been refined again. So for example, the artistic, botanical, cultural, or zoological purpose, that actually used to be the category of artistic and cultural vibrancy. So some of the questions that you've had for that particular category have been refined a bit and put into that category. Organizational stability represents the former organizational capacity and management category from last year's application. And so again, evaluating similar things with a bit clearer definition is here. And again, each definition is expanded upon in the ZAP grant manual. These are the categories that board members are reviewing. And then the last two, community engagement and public benefit. Again, this is a refresh of our public benefit and outreach category. But the financial accountability is a new category for all applicants. And so there'll be this is kind of where we're grouping some of your questions around what you provide in the budget, maybe some of an update on your organization's finances. And so some of the narrative questions that are already out there, you'll see which ones are underneath the financial accountability category, but of course you'll see that in the full application. Each one of these categories is equally weighted, so there aren't, for Tier 1 and zoological, they had different percentage weights last year, but now we have aligned these categories a little bit more closely and made them even. So I'm going to move on to this financial health test score, and Samantha will speak about that a bit more.
Great. So again, the first 4 categories that Cody mentioned are 25% each. They're all just equal in weight and priority to the board. We did do that last one that was new, the financial accountability. The board wanted a way to give responsive feedback and understand more about the financial stability of each organization. That was something that they had asked about and had been asking about for some time. And so hopefully you'll find it interesting and helpful on your team to think about planning and so on. Okay, financial health test. So not every group has to have a financial health test. Not every group has to turn in financials. And not every group has to have a peer review letter. Those applying for $22,000 or more, Tier 2, and of course Tier 1 and zoological, those all have a financial health test report. What they are is we give to our accountant, our independent CPA firm, takes your whatever financial materials are required for how much ever money you're asking for. They take that financial information, those reports, those audits, and they review them to put them through the financial health test. The financial health test has 6 portions to it. If you fail 2 of the tests or the portions of it, or you have a going concern, you fail financial health test. We will let you know if you fail the financial health test. It will take your score down, as you notice the scoring here. This is very similar to the rubric that we had before. The rubric before was a little bit more messy. It kind of went into 3 years time frame and kind of something, so we kind of broke that down and brought it together to be reflective in one more simple thing that the board could apply, and the members applying, the grantees applying and applicants would understand it better as well. So if you have a financial health test requirement, meaning you're asking for $22,000 or above, this is your 5th category for scoring. You're the only ones that would have a 5th category. So just know that. A couple other things to think about in this is, if you have any questions about the new financial accountability or the financial health test, please let me know. If you fail the financial health test, again, it will impact your score, but you will also be required to turn an improvement plan in, a health improvement plan, in order to receive funding in the future. I think that's all I'm going to say, Cody, unless I missed anything on the financial health test. We can go ahead and move on to contract signing for the group, and then wrap things up so we can get to the questions.
Yes, so the last section of today's presentation is around contract signing, obligations, and payment. So you've been recommended funding by the advisory board, and then Salt Lake County Council is approved. So then now what? Well, first you do a little happy dance, because it's a time to celebrate, no matter the amount you've been recommended, because completing a ZAP grant is tough work. So you should be celebrating, if you've been approved for any level of funding. The next thing that you're going to do, and once Salt Lake County Council has approved the recommendations of the advisory board, we start working on preparing the next stage, which is the contract signing. When you are provided access to your contract, you should review your contract and all its contractual obligations. Your step 2 should be update or registering in payment works for information. And then 3, sign your grant contract with Salt Lake County. So new for this year, which is really exciting, at least from our perspective, is ZAP is going to be using a DocuSign integration in Submittable for contract signing. And more details about this will come in the contract webinar later this year. So just to give you an overview, this typically happens in late October, early November when contracts are made available. We will provide another recorded webinar that you can watch at your leisure, you know, to learn more about what those steps and what those requirements are. In general, we give folks 2 weeks to complete contract signing. It's really important to sign your contract during that 2-week period. Particularly for the tier 2 organizations, we have over 200 organizations usually that we have to process all of those contracts one by one, and so it's very important that you keep on in communication with us, that you get things completed on time. And that's why we kind of say, like, update your payment works at that time in case somebody left your organization, or if you have turnover, you may want to make sure that a new person has access to that account. If you're a new awardee, you'll be asked to register in payment works. And again, we'll provide more details about that when the time comes. So finally, I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of when typically our grant payments made out. So for our 2027 Tier 1 and Zoological program, grant awards are paid using tax revenues received in 27. And in general, that is first awards start going out in June of 2027. Then there's regular payments. You start in July through February, and your last reconciled payment is in April of 2028. Tier 2 program, you receive grant funding. It's paid using tax revenue received in 2026. That just means, but you'll still be paid in January and April of 2027. So 60% in January and 40% in April. So, and with that, we've made it through. And now at this point in our time together, we'll go back to answering some of the questions that we have in the chat.
Great. Cody, I'm actually ready. I have a couple of them. Maybe let's peruse through a few others.
Yeah.
There's a question here about tier 2s applying for tier 1. I believe that was the question. If you're going to apply for tier 1 and you have it in the past, please contact me. If for some reason you can't get a hold of me, get a hold of Cody. We are trying to, there was a couple gaps in the previous system, a previous process. We're trying to close those gaps, sorry. Those gaps. Cody, why don't you take the screen down so we can kind of see faces, if that would be okay during the question time period?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. So please contact us. We're going to try and make it so it's more seamless for you. If we know who you are that wants to be, it's a tier 2 that wants to apply a tier 1, or if you're a tier 1 that received a very, very low score, you might want to make sure that you're applying for tier 2 funding in case the tier 1 funding doesn't come through. Please contact us if you have those concerns or questions. Again, we're trying to close that gap this year so that you don't have to do anything about it, so that you can have us take care of that and having you apply to tier 1 if you're interested, and then if you don't do well in tier 1, to make sure you have tier 2 funding and you don't have a gap year. So please contact us so we can make it seamless for you and help you take care of that. I apologize for the lighting. I am on camera. It's our office's system. I apologize. Another question was around general public, and does it have to include children under 18? It kind of depends on the situation. It couldn't be at a venue that's 21 only. That's not being publicly available. If it's some of your content's for adults, because it's a play or musical and some of your content is more appropriate for children, that's fine. If you have a particular question though, Stephanie, you're welcome to contact me so we can chit chat about it a bit more. We just don't want things like private events to be counted when it was only an invitation only type event, or if it was for 21 older because there was drinks and it was at a location that only allows 21 older on premises. Those are not what we consider publicly available. Cody, did you see anything else that you want to go ahead and grab out of there real quick before we open it up?
Okay. Just want to clarify that if you're asking for less than 22K, auditor's peer review letter is not required. No certified financials. Anything below 22K, none of the financials that we discussed here for tier 2 are required. If you're asking for less than 22K, the question is there as a post spending report required? Yes. Any amount awarded to you requires a post spending report. It does not matter the award amount.
I can answer. Oh, sorry, unless you have another one in the
Nope, go for it.
We think it's smarter to prepare your question responses in a Word doc or whatever format you want, and then copy and paste it over. It is not like the previous platform that was mean to you when you copied and pasted. It was a nightmare central. That's not how it is. Feel free to prepare your things and your thoughts with your teams, and then plug it in the system when you're final. It does keep formatting pretty well. If you run into something with that, you can use the technical space that Submittable provides, or let us know. But we've been able to copy and paste things, and they're not have a ton of issues with that. So there's a question that popped up about can you apply for over 22 if you haven't been with us for 3 years? That would be a no. We do have a new system this year that we're excited about that should give new applicants a little bit more money, a chance for more money. But if you have to be here for 3 years or longer in order to be eligible for $22,000 or above in the tier 2 category. Will previously designated collaborators be valid in the new system? No, we don't have any access, use, contract, agreement, touching relationship at all with the previous provider. We only have access. We pulled all your data. So if you do need something like a previous application or a previous PowerPoint that you put in there, or visual, we're happy to provide that to you. Hopefully you pulled those down yourself, but we don't have anything to do with that system. And so any new collaborators, owners, executive directors, anybody like that, you'll want to add them to the new system because they're not in there as it's a brand new system than previous years.
I'm seeing, Samantha, a really great question about community partners list, about whether we're asking a comprehensive list. So I would talk about your programming as it relates to what ZAP would be funding. It's nice to know what you're doing that's not ZAP related, but I would, in that question, I'd really focused on what programming partnerships do you have in the community, that are related to your ZAP activities. I would really focus on that portion.
I see another question about board members coming to events that you've been inviting them for a couple of years. If you feel like you've made the effort and you've followed the path and you're just not being heard or seen, let us know. We can find out if members have gone and just not said anything to you, or we can encourage them and say, listen, this is a grantee who's been going down the right path and not being reciprocated from us. And or the staff can come and take snapshots and share that with the board. We also share our experiences when we go to an event, what we thought of the event. So yes, please contact us if you feel like that's happening. We would like to not see that happen. Let us know. Let's talk.
And I'm going to follow up with that around, I think the question right above it, can we invite board members to our events if we are not yet a ZAP recipient? No, you have to be a ZAP recipient and a grantee in order to really start inviting the board to that activity or event.
I have a similar question. Someone asked about the impact program. Kelsey's amazing impact program. It's killing it all day long. I hope everyone here has a chance to participate in some way. We just had a session today that was very, very successful. If you're not a grantee, but you are a nonprofit organization, you can participate in some of the Kelsey's offerings, not all of them in the impact program, but there are free offerings to nonprofits, particularly if they're in arts, but even if they're not in arts, we do allow them and welcome them, frankly, to come to some of the events that she has offerings in. I don't see anything else in the chat unless we've missed anything. Do we want to just open it up? We've got about 11 more minutes. to chat through anything. And again, we can do technical support calls. Cody's got it on his Calendly. You can find that in the manual or on our website to just schedule your own private call. We've already received requests for that. Our calendar's already getting booked up. He's offering evening hours this year. Evening hours are great too. So happy to do that. But we're going to open it up. Anyone have questions you want to chat through? That was a lot of information.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, I'm going home. I've had a full day. I'm out of here. Right?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I see the smiles. I see the nodding. For everyone who's joined us, we'll stay on for the time, but if those who want to go ahead and have a great day, and please schedule a call or anything, any kind of support you need, let us know.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Happy Wednesday.
Bye-bye. Yep.